She activated the ancient alien Codex, and it said, "Welcome back, Founder. Before we dive into this story, drop a quick hi in the comments and tell me where you're watching from. It really helps support the channel." The desert wind whipped sand against Dr. Eliza Cooper's faceplate as she knelt before the strange metallic structure that had no business being buried under 30 feet of Egyptian sandstone. The excavation lights cast long shadows across the underground chamber, illuminating hieroglyphs that seemed to shift between ancient Egyptian and something else entirely, something no human language should be able to represent. "Are you getting this, Marcus?" Eliza asked, adjusting her camera to capture the strange symbols etched into what appeared to be a seamless hexagonal pillar of an unknown metal. The material gleamed with an internal light that had no discernible source, despite being buried for what carbon dating suggested was at least 12,000 years. "Crystal clear," replied Dr. Marcus Dean through her comms. "And still completely impossible. The alloy doesn't match anything in our database. Not even close." Eliza brushed her fingers against the smooth surface, feeling a strange vibration that seemed to resonate with her touch. "There's some kind of response when I touch it. Almost like..." The surface beneath her fingertips suddenly illuminated, lines of light spreading outward from the point of contact like digital veins. Eliza jerked her hand back, but it was too late. The entire chamber began to hum with energy, and the hieroglyphs along the walls pulsed with the same ethereal light. "Marcus, are you seeing this?" Eliza whispered, her voice barely audible over the rising hum. "Get out of there now," Marcus shouted through the comms. "The energy readings are off the charts. The whole structure is." His voice cut off as a blinding flash erupted from the pillar. Eliza threw up her arms to shield her eyes, but instead of heat or pain, she felt a strange sensation, like being immersed in warm liquid while remaining perfectly dry. When the light faded, the hexagonal pillar had transformed. Its surface now displayed a holographic interface, symbols and diagrams floating in the air before her. And in the center, a pulsing sphere of light rotated slowly, scanning her from head to toe. Then, words appeared, not in hieroglyphs or any human language, but somehow Eliza understood them perfectly. "Genetic sequence recognized. Founder protocol initiated. Welcome back, Founder." "That's not possible," Eliza breathed, her heart pounding in her chest. The sphere of light expanded, enveloping her in a cocoon of energy. Images flooded her mind, stars and planets she'd never seen, civilizations rising and falling, technology beyond human comprehension. And through it all, faces, not human, yet somehow familiar. When the light receded, Eliza found herself still kneeling in the chamber, but the world had changed. Or rather, her understanding of it had. "Eliza, Eliza," Marcus was still shouting through the comms. "What happened? You disappeared from all our sensors for exactly 3 minutes and 27 seconds. Eliza rose to her feet, staring at her hands as if seeing them for the first time. "Marcus," she said slowly, "we need to secure this site immediately, and I need to speak with the UN Security Council." "What? Why? What did you see?" Eliza looked back at the pillar, which had returned to its dormant state, though she now recognized it for what it truly was: a beacon, a library, and a warning all in one. "Because," she said, her voice steady despite the weight of the knowledge now filling her mind, "I just learned that humans didn't evolve on Earth. We were placed here, and the ones who left us here are coming back." 6 months later, Eliza stood before the assembled representatives of Earth's major powers in a specially constructed facility in Geneva. The room hummed with tension and disbelief as she concluded her presentation. "So you're telling us," the Russian delegate said, his voice heavy with skepticism, "that humans are actually descendants of an advanced spacefaring civilization that abandoned Earth thousands of years ago? And now they're returning." "Not abandoned," Eliza corrected, bringing up a holographic display that she'd extracted from the Codex. "Seated. Protected. Earth was an experiment, a sanctuary created to preserve our species after a devastating war with another civilization. And we're supposed to just believe this because some ancient technology recognized your DNA? The Chinese representative's voice was cold with distrust. Dr. Nolan from NASA leaned forward. The technology she brought back has been independently verified. It's centuries beyond our most advanced theoretical models. No human could have created it. But why Dr. Cooper? Asked the French delegate. Why was she recognized as this founder? Eliza touched a control on her wrist device, another gift from the Codex, and displayed her genetic sequence alongside markers highlighted in red. Certain bloodlines were preserved, she explained. Carriers of specific genetic markers who could access the Codex if civilization ever reached a certain technological threshold again. I'm not special, just a descendant of those entrusted with recovery protocols. And these ancestors, the American Secretary of Defense said carefully, they're coming back now? What? Eliza's expression darkened. Because the war never ended. They left us here to develop independently, hoping we might evolve solutions they couldn't see. The Codex activated because it detected signals from their ancient enemy approaching our solar system. The room erupted in a cacophony of voices until the UN Secretary-General raised his hand for silence. Dr. Cooper, what exactly are you proposing? Eliza straightened her shoulders. The Codex contains technological blueprints, weapons, shields, faster-than-light communication. Things we could never develop in time on our own. I'm proposing we implement them immediately. And make ourselves targets? The British Prime Minister scoffed. If these aliens are as advanced as you claim, wouldn't contact be better than conflict? The Vraxen don't make contact, Eliza said grimly. They harvest. They've been systematically eliminating every trace of our ancestors' civilization for millennia. The Codex showed me worlds they've stripped bare. If they find us unprepared, Earth will be next. Lauren Bennett, the leading xenobiologist who'd been studying the biological data from the Codex, stood up beside Eliza. We verified the biological profiles of these Vraxen against the Codex database. They're not interested in diplomacy. They're interested in resources, specifically, worlds with diverse biospheres they can strip for genetic material. How long do we have? Asked the Indian representative. Based on the long-range sensors I was able to activate from the Egyptian site, less than 2 years, Eliza answered. But there's more. The Codex didn't just activate for me. There are 11 other sites around the world, and they're waking up too. We need to find the other founders before the Vraxen realize we're here. The Secretary-General's face was grim as he looked around the table. I think we need to put this to a vote. Do we proceed with Dr. Cooper's recommendations, or do we seek alternative preparations? As the votes were tallied, Eliza felt the weight of history pressing down on her shoulders. Everything she'd believed about human civilization, about her own identity, had been shattered in that underground chamber. And now, the future of humanity might depend on how well she could convince these leaders to believe the unbelievable. The vote was unanimous. Operation Founder would begin immediately. 3 months later, Eliza stood on the bridge of the Sentinel, Earth's first faster-than-light capable vessel, constructed using the blueprints from the Codex. The ship hummed with power as it orbited the moon, hidden from Earth's casual observers. Final systems check complete, reported Captain Tyler Grant, a former NASA astronaut who'd been selected to command the Sentinel. All systems operational at 112% of projected capacity. The adaptive intelligence seems to be optimizing beyond our initial parameters, noted Dr. Blake Turner, the quantum physicist who had helped translate the Codex's propulsion schematics. It's almost as if the ship is learning. It is, Eliza confirmed, running her hand along a console that responded to her touch with a soft glow. The technology is designed to evolve with use. The more we work with it, the more it adapts to our specific needs. Still doesn't explain how we built a spacecraft this advanced in 3 months, muttered Security Chief Natalie Quinn, her hand never straying far from the weapon at her hip, another creation derived from the Codex. When you have perfect blueprints and unlimited international funding, progress happens quickly, Eliza replied with a thin smile. She turned to the communications station. Any word from the other sites? Communications Officer Riley Scott nodded. The Peruvian team has successfully activated their Codex node. That makes 8 out of 12. Still no contact from the sites in Siberia, Australia, or Japan. And the Greenland team? Riley's expression fell. Still not responding since their last transmission 3 days ago. Eliza exchanged a worried glance with Captain Grant. We need to investigate. If the Vraxen have forward scouts already here. Commander, interrupted the sensor operator, we're detecting an energy signature matching the Codex profile. It's approaching Earth's orbit, coming in fast from the direction of Mars. Proximity alert, the ship's adaptive AI announced in a calm, androgynous voice. Unknown vessel approaching. Configuration matches founder design parameters. The bridge crew froze as a sleek, silver craft materialized on their view screen, effortlessly decelerating from impossible speeds. Is that? Captain Grant whispered. One of ours, Eliza confirmed, her eyes wide with wonder and apprehension. A ship built by our ancestors. But who's piloting it? The answer came moments later as a transmission cut through their communications system, bypassing all encryption as if it weren't there. Sentinel vessel, this is Admiral Terran of the Stellar Concordance. Came a voice that sounded almost human, but with subtle harmonics that no human vocal cords could produce. We've detected Founder Protocol activations on your world, requesting permission to approach and establish diplomatic contact. Captain Grant looked to Eliza, who nodded slowly. Admiral Terran, this is Captain Tyler Grant of Earth Vessel Sentinel. Permission granted. We welcome contact with the Stellar Concordance. Thank you, Captain, replied Admiral Terran. And to the Founder who activated the recovery protocol, well done. We've been waiting a very long time for this moment. 2 hours later, Eliza found herself face to face with beings who looked remarkably human, save for their slightly larger eyes with pupils that changed shape subtly with their emotions, and skin with a faint iridescent quality that seemed to shift colors with their moods. Admiral Terran was tall and commanding, with features that reminded Eliza vaguely of Polynesian ancestry, though she knew that was her mind trying to contextualize something far more complex. Dr. Cooper, Terran said, inclining her head in a gesture of respect. Your activation of the Egypt Codex sent ripples throughout the network. Many of us had begun to fear Earth's experiment had failed. Experiment, Eliza echoed, trying to keep the edge from her voice. You mean abandoning humans on a primitive world and watching to see if we'd survive? A flicker of something like regret passed across Terran's features, her skin momentarily darkening. A necessary precaution, not abandonment. The war with the Vraxen had reached a critical stage. Our civilization was on the brink of extinction. Earth was our last hope, a world where a portion of our people could develop beyond the reach of the Vraxen sensors, potentially evolving new solutions to an enemy we could no longer defeat conventionally. Then humans really are. Captain Grant began. You are us, confirmed Kalen, the Concordance's chief scientist. Or rather, a branch of our species deliberately reverted to a pre-technological state and allowed to evolve along a different path. The genetic modifications were minimal, primarily focused on removing certain technological dependencies our species had developed. But why not just hide some of your people with all your technology intact? Asked Dr. Turner. Why make us start over from the Stone Age? Because technology can be detected, Terran explained. Quantum signatures, energy emissions, the Vraxen can trace these across light years. But biological life, evolving naturally on a world rich with other species, that they might overlook, at least long enough for your civilization to reach a crucial divergence point, which is now, Eliza realized. That's why the Codex activated when it did. Not just because we reached a certain technological threshold, but because the Vraxen are approaching. Terran nodded grimly. Their harvesting fleets have systematically worked through this galactic sector for millennia. Earth is directly in their path. We've been monitoring their advance while gathering what remains of our forces. With your activation of the Codex, we finally have hope. Hope. Security Chief Quinn looked skeptical. No offense, Admiral, but we've barely managed to build one ship with your technology. How are we supposed to help against an enemy that nearly wiped out your entire civilization? Because you're different, Kalen said, excitement evident in his voice. Your isolation on Earth, your evolution alongside other species, the unique challenges you've faced, they've created patterns of thought and innovation we never developed. Already, your adaptations to our technology show approaches we would never have considered. The Codex wasn't just a library, Eliza realized, thinking back to the flood of information that had poured into her mind. It was studying us too, learning how we think. Precisely, Terran confirmed. And now we need your help. The Vraxan Advance Guard will reach your solar system within months, with their main harvesting fleet not far behind. We have ships and resources hidden throughout the galaxy, but what we lack is the one thing Earth has provided, a new perspective. The meeting continued for hours as the Concordance representatives shared their history, technology, and the dire threat the Vraxan posed. By the time they returned to the Sentinel, Eliza's mind was reeling with implications. So, Captain Grant said quietly as they watched the Concordance vessel maintain formation alongside them, humanity's greatest achievement is apparently just being human. Different enough from our ancestors to see solutions they missed. It's more than that, Eliza replied. We're not just their descendants or their experiment. According to the Codex, we're their legacy, everything they hoped to preserve about themselves before the Vraxan could erase it all. Before Captain Grant could respond, alarms blared across the bridge. Multiple unknown signatures detected at the edge of the solar system, announced the sensor operator. Configuration unknown, but energy signatures are consistent with Vraxan technology as described in the Codex database. Admiral Terran's voice came through the communication system. Sentinel, we're detecting Vraxan scout vessels entering your system. This isn't right. They shouldn't be here for months based on our projections. Unless they detected the Codex activations, Eliza said, a cold realization washing over her. The very thing meant to warn us might have drawn their attention. All hands to battle stations, ordered Captain Grant. Prepare for possible hostile contact. As the crew rushed to their positions, Eliza stared at the view screen showing the approaching alien vessels. Humanity had just discovered they weren't alone in the universe, that they were descendants of an advanced civilization, and now they might have to fight for their very existence before they'd even had time to process the truth. The Vraxan scouts accelerated toward Earth, their twisted, asymmetrical forms growing larger on the view screen with each passing moment. The countdown to humanity's greatest challenge had begun, and Eliza couldn't shake the feeling that despite all the advanced technology at their disposal, Earth wasn't ready. But then again, perhaps that was exactly why they might succeed where their ancestors had failed. Earth's humans hadn't been ready for any of the challenges they'd faced throughout their turbulent history, yet somehow, they'd always found a way to survive. Captain, she said, straightening her shoulders as a plan began to form in her mind. I think I know how we can use the Vraxan's aggression against them. But we'll need to coordinate with all the Codex sites immediately. As the Sentinel moved to intercept the approaching threat, Eliza felt the weight of both human history and their newly discovered cosmic heritage resting on her decisions. The Codex had called her Founder, not because she had created anything, but because she now stood at the foundation of humanity's next great chapter. And if they survived the coming storm, that chapter would rewrite the stars themselves. Captain Grant studied the tactical display, his expression grim. 6 Vraxan scout ships, heavily armed from what the Concordance databases tell us. Our shields should hold. But the Earth is completely vulnerable, Eliza finished. We need to draw them away from the planet. Admiral Terran's face appeared on the communication screen. We're preparing to engage, but we should retreat to the outer system. Earth isn't ready for this conflict. With respect, Admiral, Eliza countered, retreat is exactly what they'll expect. These are scouts. They're here to confirm what they detected and report back. If we can capture one instead of destroying it, We might gain valuable intelligence. Capture. Security Chief Quinn looked at Eliza like she'd lost her mind. These are advanced alien warships, not fish to be netted. Actually, Dr. Turner interjected, studying the Codex data on his screen. Dr. Cooper might be onto something. The propulsion system the Vraxen use creates a quantum field that's highly sensitive to gravitational anomalies. If we could generate a localized gravity well. Terran's eyes widened slightly. You're suggesting we trap them? It could work, but the energy requirements would be enormous. We have 11 active Codex sites on Earth, Eliza pointed out. If we coordinate them to channel energy simultaneously, we could create a gravity net, Terran finished, a flicker of admiration crossing her features. A strategy the Vraxen wouldn't expect because we've never used it before. Captain Grant nodded decisively. Let's do it. Riley, contact all active Codex sites and relay the synchronization protocols. Dr. Turner, work with the Concordance scientists to calibrate the gravity projectors. As the crew sprang into action, Eliza couldn't help but notice how quickly humans had adapted to working with technology they barely understood and allies who until recently had been the stuff of science fiction. This adaptability, this ability to leap into the unknown without hesitation, perhaps this was what the founders had been counting on all along. The plan worked better than anyone could have anticipated. When the Vraxen scouts approached Mars orbit, the combined power of Earth's Codex sites, channeled through the Sentinel and the Concordance vessel, created a precisely tuned gravitational distortion that caught 5 of the 6 Vraxen ships. Their asymmetrical hulls twisted violently as they struggled against the invisible net, their propulsion systems flaring erratically before failing completely. The 6th scout, however, veered away at the last moment, accelerating toward the outer system. They're running, Captain Grant observed. Preparing pursuit course. Wait, Eliza said, studying the sensor readings. That ship is transmitting. Massive data burst directed toward the galactic rim. They're calling for reinforcements, Terran confirmed grimly. We need to intercept them before. The view screen flashed as a brilliant beam of energy lanced out from Earth's direction, striking the fleeing Vraxen vessel with pinpoint accuracy. The alien ship shuddered, its systems failing as it tumbled powerlessly through space. What was that? Captain Grant demanded. Orbital defense platform, Riley reported, sounding as surprised as everyone else. Activated from the Antarctic Codex site. I didn't even know we had those deployed yet. Eliza's wrist device chimed with an incoming transmission. When she activated it, a familiar face appeared. Dr. Owen Porter, one of the anthropologists who had been working with her before the Codex changed everything. Surprise, he said with a grim smile. Turns out the Antarctic site wasn't just a Codex. It was a full defense platform. Dormant until now. Owen, Eliza breathed. You're a founder too? He nodded. Found out 3 weeks ago. Been working around the clock to get the platform operational. Looks like we finished just in time. With all 6 Vraxen scouts neutralized, the real work began. The captured vessels contained a wealth of information, not just about Vraxen technology, but about their plans for Earth and the surrounding systems. This is worse than we thought, Kalen said as the combined human and Concordance teams analyzed the data. The Vraxen aren't just sending a harvesting fleet, they're deploying a Genesis engine. What's a Genesis engine? Asked Dr. Lauren Bennett, who had joined them from Earth via secure transmission. A terraforming device, Terran explained, her skin darkening to a troubled gray. It reconfigures a planet's entire biosphere to Vraxen specifications. All existing life is broken down at the molecular level and repurposed. Total planetary extinction, Eliza whispered. How long do we have? Captain Grant asked. Kalen's expression was grave. Based on these navigational records, their main fleet will arrive in approximately 7 months. Then we have work to do, Eliza said, her voice steady despite the fear coiling in her stomach. We need to find the remaining founders, activate all the Codex sites, and prepare Earth's defenses. And then, asked Security Chief Quinn. Eliza met her gaze squarely. And then we show both our ancestors and our enemies what humans do best: survive against impossible odds. As the Sentinel returned to Earth orbit, Eliza stood before the view screen, watching the blue planet rotate serenely below. Somewhere down there were billions of people still going about their daily lives, unaware that their world now stood on the precipice of either destruction or an unprecedented evolutionary leap forward. The Codex had called her Founder not because of who she had been in the past, but because of what she would help build for the future. And whatever that future held, Eliza knew one thing with absolute certainty: humanity would face it together, drawing strength from both their cosmic heritage and the unique resilience they had forged during their time alone on Earth. The real test was just beginning. 6 months into Earth's preparation for the Vraxan invasion, the planet had transformed. Defense platforms orbited in strategic positions, their sleek designs betraying their concordance origins, while their weapon systems showed distinctly human modifications. On the ground, shield generators at each of the 12 Codex sites created a networked barrier capable of withstanding tremendous force. Eliza stood in what had once been the United Nations General Assembly, but was now the Earth Defense Command Center. Holographic displays showed fleet positions, defense readiness, and countdown timers. 42 days until the projected arrival of the Vraxan main fleet. London Codex is now operating at full capacity, announced Riley Scott, who had become the communications director for the entire operation. All 12 founders are in position. Finding the final 4 founders had been a race against time. Dr. Noah Ellis, a marine biologist, had been working on a research vessel near the Japanese Codex when it activated. Megan Brooks, an electrical engineer, had been backpacking through Australia when she felt an inexplicable pull toward the Outback site. The Siberian founder, Dr. Adam Clark, had been studying permafrost samples less than 20 miles from where the Codex lay hidden. But the Greenland founder had been the most surprising. Captain Olivia Hayes, the very pilot who had flown Eliza to Egypt on her fateful expedition. Olivia had been captured by a Vraxan advance team that had secretly established a base beneath the Greenland ice sheet. Her rescue had been the Sentinels' first official combat mission, and the knowledge they had gained from the captured Vraxan base had proven invaluable. "We've confirmed multiple gravitational distortions forming at the calculated entry point," reported Dr. Turner, now head of the scientific division. "The Vraxan fleet is right on schedule." "What's the status of Project Prometheus?" Eliza asked, turning to Dr. Ellis. "Final simulations are complete," he replied, bringing up a complex schematic on the main display. "The adaptive shields should be able to absorb their initial energy weapons and redirect the power to our own systems. In theory, the more they attack, the stronger we become." "In theory," echoed Security Chief Quinn, who had been promoted to Global Defense Commander. "Let's hope it works better than the gravity mines did on their second wave of scouts." The memory of that failed defense still stung. The Vraxan had adapted quickly to the gravity trap strategy, sending in specially modified scouts that used the gravitational distortions to accelerate rather than becoming trapped. 15 Earth defense fighters had been lost in that engagement. The Vraxan adapt quickly to any strategy used against them more than once, Admiral Terran reminded them as she entered the command center. "That's how they've remained dominant for so long. But that's also why Earth's unique approach may be our best hope." Over the past months, the relationship between humans and the Concordance had evolved from cautious alliance to genuine respect. While the Concordance provided technological expertise and their accumulated knowledge of the Vraxan, humans contributed creativity and unconventional thinking that repeatedly surprised their cosmic cousins. "Admiral, we've been monitoring unusual energy fluctuations from the Vraxan fleet," reported Captain Grant, who now commanded Earth's small but growing space fleet. "They're concentrating power in what appears to be the Genesis engine. They're preparing to activate it as soon as they arrive," Terran confirmed grimly. "Standard Vraxan protocol. Waste no time once the target is in range." "Then we stick to the plan," Eliza said, her voice steady despite the tension coiling through her body. The combined Earth Concordance fleet will engage their escorts while the Sentinel leads the strike team against their command ship and the Genesis engine. It's still a significant risk, Terran cautioned. If the Sentinel is destroyed before reaching the Genesis engine, then Earth falls, Eliza finished. We know the stakes, Admiral, but this is our best chance. As the meeting concluded, Eliza found herself standing alone before the global display, watching as millions of humans around the world continued preparations for the coming battle. Some knew the full truth, that they were descendants of an advanced civilization fighting to reclaim their cosmic heritage. Others had been told only that Earth faced an extraterrestrial threat, but all were united in purpose. "Penny, for your thoughts?" asked a familiar voice as Marcus Dean joined her. Her old colleague had adapted remarkably well to the new reality, becoming one of the key liaisons between the scientific community and the Defense Command. "Just thinking about how much has changed," Eliza replied. 6 months ago, I was digging up artifacts and trying to piece together human history. Now I'm helping plan an interstellar war. And doing a damn fine job of it, Marcus said with a slight smile. "The Concordance researchers are still talking about your adaptive shield matrix design. Apparently, it's elegantly primitive yet functionally revolutionary." Eliza laughed softly. "I'll take that as a compliment." "You should," Marcus said, his expression growing serious. "That's the thing the Vraxen don't understand about us. We might not have their technological head start, but we've spent our entire history adapting to new threats and challenges. It's in our DNA." "Speaking of DNA," Eliza said, "the genetic enhancement program is showing promising results. The volunteers are adapting to the Concordance neural interfaces at twice the projected rate." The program had been controversial, using the Codex data to activate dormant genetic potential in select human volunteers. These enhanced individuals could interface directly with the advanced technology, serving as human pilots for vessels that would normally require Concordance crew members. 30 years of technological advancement in 6 months, Marcus mused. "When this is all over, assuming we survive, humanity will never be the same." "No," Eliza agreed, "we won't. But then, change is the one constant in human history. We'll adapt to being a spacefaring civilization with ancient cosmic roots the same way we've adapted to everything else, one step at a time." As they spoke, Eliza's wrist device chimed with an urgent alert. "Defense Command, this is Sentinel," came Captain Grant's voice. "We're detecting accelerated gravitational distortions. The Vraxen fleet has increased speed. New arrival estimate is 36 hours. Eliza's heart sank. "They're coming early. They must have detected our preparations," Marcus said, already moving toward the communication station to alert the other command centers. "All defense personnel to battle stations," Eliza ordered, her voice calm despite the adrenaline surging through her system. "Initiate worldwide alert protocols. The Vraxen have accelerated their timeline. We need to do the same." As the command center erupted into controlled chaos, Eliza felt a strange calm settle over her. The Codex had prepared her for this moment, not just with knowledge and technology, but with the understanding that this confrontation had been millennia in the making. Humanity had been given a second chance that their ancestors never had, the opportunity to face the Vraxen with fresh perspectives and unconventional strategies. And perhaps most importantly, they would face them together, Earth united as never before. 28 hours later, Eliza stood on the bridge of the Sentinel as it took position at the front of Earth's defense fleet. Behind them, the blue-green planet gleamed against the blackness of space, shield generators creating a faint iridescent shimmer across its atmosphere. "Vraxen fleet emerging from hyperspace in 5 minutes," announced the sensor operator, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. Captain Grant moved to stand beside Eliza. "Strike team is ready. Once we create an opening in their defenses, we'll make our run for the command ship." Eliza nodded, her eyes fixed on the tactical display. The plan was daring, perhaps even reckless, but it played to human strengths. While the Concordance vessels would engage the Vraxen in conventional space combat, The Sentinel would lead a small squadron of enhanced Earth fighters on a precision strike against the massive Genesis engine at the heart of the enemy fleet. Admiral Terran's signals ready, reported Riley from the communications station. All Concordance vessels in position. Defense platforms report weapons locked and shields at maximum, added Security Chief Quinn from her station on Earth. This is it, Eliza said quietly. Humanity's first interstellar battle. And perhaps our last. Not if I have anything to say about it. Captain Grant replied with grim determination. This planet has survived ice ages, asteroid impacts, and our own worst tendencies. I'm not about to let some cosmic bullies be the end of us. Eliza smiled despite herself. That attitude, that defiant refusal to accept defeat even in the face of overwhelming odds, it was quintessentially human. And perhaps it was exactly what the original founders had been counting on when they seeded Earth all those millennia ago. Vraxan fleet detected, announced the sensor operator. 87 vessels, including the command ship and Genesis engine platform. On the view screen, space itself seemed to ripple and tear as massive ships emerged from hyperspace. Twisted, asymmetrical vessels that looked almost organic, their hulls covered in pulsing nodes and protruding weapons arrays. At the center of the formation loomed the command ship, easily 5 times larger than any other vessel, with the Genesis engine attached like a grotesque parasite to its underside. All hands, battle stations, ordered Captain Grant. Shields to maximum. Weapons systems online. As the Vraxan fleet moved into attack formation, a transmission cut through all communication channels, a harsh, discordant sound that the ship's translators struggled to convert into something comprehensible. Vessels of Earth and remaining Concordance forces, came a grating voice that seemed to bypass their ears and resonate directly in their minds. This is Harvester Prime Zulak of the Vraxan Dominion. Your world has been selected for resource extraction. Resistance will only increase suffering before inevitable harvest. Surrender now, and some biological samples may be preserved. Captain Grant looked to Eliza, who nodded slightly. Harvester Prime Zulak, Grant responded, his voice steady and resolute. This is Captain Tyler Grant of Earth Vessel Sentinel. On behalf of humanity and our Concordance allies, I have a message for you. He paused, meeting Eliza's eyes with a fierce grin. Earth is not yours to take. If you want our world, you'll have to go through us first. Without waiting for a response, Grant turned to the tactical officer. Execute attack pattern Alpha. All fighters launch. The space between the fleets erupted in brilliant light as Earth's defense platforms fired simultaneously, targeting the forward Vraxan vessels with pinpoint accuracy. The Concordance fleet accelerated toward the enemy's right flank, while the Sentinel led its strike squadron toward a gap in the Vraxan formation. The battle had begun. The first minutes were chaos as energy weapons crossed the void, shields flared against impacts, and fighters darted between capital ships like angry insects. The Vraxan responded with brutal efficiency, their weapons tearing through several Earth fighters and damaging 2 Concordance cruisers. But the Vraxan commanders had never faced humans in battle before. They had no reference for the seemingly illogical attack patterns, the willingness to take extraordinary risks, or the fierce determination that drove Earth's forces forward despite heavy losses. Shield generators holding at 68%, reported the Sentinel's defensive systems officer as another Vraxan blast rocked the ship. Adaptive matrices are learning their weapon frequencies. Efficiency increasing with each hit. Keep us on course for the command ship, Grant ordered, gripping the edge of his chair as the Sentinel banked sharply to avoid debris from a destroyed Vraxan escort vessel. All power to forward shields. We need to punch through their defensive line. On the tactical display, Eliza watched as the human Concordance fleet executed their carefully planned strategy. The Earth defense platforms maintained constant fire, preventing the Vraxan from establishing a stable formation. The Concordance vessels pressed their attack on the enemy's flank, drawing attention and fire away from the Sentinel strike team. And at each of the 12 Codex sites on Earth, The founders channeled energy through ancient systems that had lain dormant for millennia, strengthening the planetary shields and feeding power to the orbiting defense platforms. "We've got a problem," announced Dr. Turner from the science station. "The Genesis engine is powering up. They're accelerating the activation sequence." "How long?" Eliza demanded. "At current power levels, 17 minutes until it reaches critical threshold. Once that happens, Earth's biosphere begins to unravel," Eliza finished grimly. "Captain, we need to reach that engine now." Grant nodded sharply. "Helm, set course directly for the command ship. Tactical, concentrate all fire on any vessel in our path." "Sir, that course takes us through the heaviest concentration of enemy fire," the helmsman protested. "The shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line," Grant replied. "And we're running out of time for detours." As the Sentinel altered course, plunging deeper into the heart of the Vraxan fleet, Eliza opened a channel to Earth Defense Command. "This is Founder 1, she said, using her operational designation. "Sentinel is making a direct approach to the Genesis engine. Request maximum suppressing fire on these coordinates." "Acknowledged, Founder 1," came Quinn's voice. "Redirecting all available platforms to your vector. Good hunting." The space around the Sentinel erupted with renewed energy as Earth's defense platforms concentrated their fire on the Vraxan vessels in their path. 3 enemy ships exploded in quick succession, creating a momentary gap in their formation. "There's our window," Grant announced. "Full power to engines. All fighters, form up and prepare to cover our approach to the command ship." The Sentinel surged forward, its enhanced engines pushing it to speeds no Earth vessel had achieved before. Behind them, the strike squadron of 12 fighters, each piloted by a genetically enhanced human interfaced directly with their craft, moved into protective formation. "Genesis engine powering up," Dr. Turner reported, his voice tense. 13 minutes to activation threshold. On the view screen, the massive Vraxan command ship grew larger, its twisted form bristling with weapons that now turned toward the approaching Sentinel. The Genesis engine pulsed with ominous energy beneath it, tendrils of sickly green light beginning to reach toward Earth. "They've locked onto us," reported the tactical officer. "Multiple weapons systems targeting. Evasive maneuvers," Grant ordered. "Keep us moving toward that engine." The Sentinel shuddered as Vraxan energy weapons slammed into its shields. Warning indicators flashed across control panels as systems struggled to compensate for the tremendous power being directed against them. "Shields at 42% and falling," called the defensive systems officer. "The adaptive matrices can't keep up with this level of concentrated fire. Reroute power from non-essential systems," Grant commanded. "We need those shields to hold until we reach our target." Eliza moved to the tactical station, studying the approaching command ship with intense focus. The Codex knowledge that had been imprinted in her mind included detailed schematics of Vraxan vessel design, knowledge that might mean the difference between success and failure. "There," she said, highlighting a section of the command ship where the Genesis engine connected to the main power systems. "That junction point is their weakest link. A concentrated strike there would disrupt the power flow to the engine." "Can we hit it from this range?" Grant asked the tactical officer. "Negative, sir. We need to get closer, much closer." "Genesis engine at 83% power," Turner announced. 10 minutes to activation threshold. Grant's expression hardened with resolve. "Helm, set course directly for that junction point. Maximum speed." "Sir, at that trajectory, we won't be able to pull up in time to avoid collision with the command ship," the helmsman warned. "Who said anything about pulling up?" Grant replied, his voice calm but determined. "Tactical, prepare to concentrate all weapons on that junction point the moment we're in range." Eliza realized what he was planning. "Captain, that's a suicide run." Grant met her gaze steadily. "Not necessarily. But we're out of options for a conventional approach. Their defenses are too strong, we're running out of time, and that engine needs to be stopped." Before Eliza could respond, the ship rocked violently as a particularly powerful blast struck their shields. "Shields at 28%, reported the defensive systems officer. One more direct hit like that, and we're done. All power to forward shields and engines, Grant ordered. The rest of you, get to the escape pods. That's an order. Sir, several officers began simultaneously. This isn't a debate, Grant cut them off. Dr. Cooper and I will handle the final approach. The rest of you need to survive to help Earth rebuild. Now go. As the bridge crew reluctantly complied, Eliza moved to stand beside Grant at the helm console. You don't have to stay, he told her quietly. Yes, I do, she replied. The Codex chose me for a reason. This is what I was meant to do. Grant nodded once, then opened a channel to the strike squadron. All fighters, this is Captain Grant. Break off and engage the Vraxan interceptors. Keep them off our tail for the next 5 minutes. After that, fall back to defensive positions around Earth. The acknowledgments came quickly, the squadron leaders understanding what wasn't being said, that the Sentinel was making its final approach. Genesis engine at 91% power, the ship's computer announced, Turner having programmed it to continue his monitoring. 7 minutes to activation threshold. Grant's hands moved across the helm controls, plotting their final course directly toward the vulnerable junction point where the Genesis engine connected to the Vraxan command ship. Sentinel to Earth Defense Command, he transmitted. We're making our final approach to the target. If we're successful, there may be a substantial energy release. Be prepared to shield the planet. Understood, Sentinel, came Quinn's solemn reply. All defense platforms are standing by. It's been an honor. As the Sentinel accelerated toward the massive Vraxan command ship, energy weapons from a dozen enemy vessels converged on them. The shields flared brilliantly with each impact, the adaptive matrices struggling to distribute the tremendous energy being directed against them. Shields at 12%, the computer reported dispassionately. Structural integrity compromised on decks 3 through 7. Reroute all remaining power to engines and forward weapons, Grant ordered. We only need to hold together for another 2 minutes. The command ship loomed larger on the view screen, its twisted form filling their view as the Sentinel hurtled toward it at tremendous speed. The Genesis engine pulsed beneath it, the sickly green tendrils now forming a coherent beam that reached toward Earth like a grotesque finger. Genesis engine at 97% power, the computer announced. 3 minutes to activation threshold. Weapons range in 30 seconds, Grant reported, his hands steady on the controls despite the ship shuddering around them. Charging main cannon for maximum yield. Eliza placed her hand on the console beside his, feeling the ship's vibrations through her palm. In that moment, all the knowledge from the Codex, all the revelations about humanity's true origins, crystallized into a single understanding. This was why the founders had created Earth and its humans. Not just as an experiment or a hiding place, but as their legacy, their second chance to defeat an enemy they couldn't overcome alone. Weapons range achieved, announced the computer. Target locked. Fire all weapons, Grant ordered, his voice clear and strong despite the chaos around them. The Sentinel's main cannon discharged with a surge of power that momentarily dimmed all other systems. The concentrated energy beam struck precisely at the junction between the Genesis engine and the command ship, punching through the Vraxan shields and into the vulnerable power conduits beyond. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the junction point erupted in a cascade of explosions that raced along the connection points. The Genesis engine's pulsing glow faltered, the green beam dissipating as its power supply was severed. Direct hit, Grant confirmed, a fierce grin spreading across his face. Genesis engine power levels dropping rapidly. But we're still on a collision course, Eliza pointed out, watching as the distance to the command ship decreased with alarming speed. I know, Grant replied calmly. That's Phase 2. He opened a channel to all Earth and Concordance forces. This is Captain Grant of the Sentinel. Genesis engine has been disabled. All forces fall back to defensive positions. I repeat, fall back immediately. Then, his fingers dancing across the controls, he initiated a sequence Eliza didn't recognize. Sentinel self-destruct protocol activated. Quantum core set to overload in 20 seconds. Tyler, Eliza began. Don't worry, he cut her off, hitting a final control. I said this wasn't necessarily a suicide run. A section of the floor beneath them suddenly slid open, revealing a small two-person escape pod. The captain's last resort, Grant explained, gesturing for her to get in. One final gift from our Concordance friends. Now move. As they sealed themselves into the compact pod, Grant triggered the launch sequence. With a violent jolt, the pod ejected from the Sentinel's underside, rocketing away from the doomed ship and the Vraxan command vessel. 10 seconds to quantum core overload. Came the Sentinel's computer voice through their pod's communication system. Through the small viewport, Eliza watched as their ship, now little more than a speck against the massive bulk of the Vraxan command vessel, continued its unerring course toward the damaged junction point. 5 seconds, the computer counted down. 4, 3, 2, 1. The space around the Vraxan command ship erupted in blinding light as the Sentinel's quantum core detonated. The explosion, magnified by the destabilized power systems of the Genesis engine, engulfed the entire forward section of the command vessel. Secondary explosions cascaded through its structure, ripping the massive ship apart from within. The shockwave hit their escape pod moments later, sending it tumbling wildly through space despite its inertial dampeners. Eliza gripped the restraints as Grant fought to stabilize their trajectory. Earth Defense Command to all vessels, came Quinn's voice through the static-filled communication system. The Vraxan command ship has been destroyed. Repeat, command ship destroyed. Genesis engine neutralized. As their pod stabilized, Eliza and Grant watched through the viewport as the remains of the Vraxan fleet fell into disarray. Without their command ship and the Genesis engine, the remaining vessels seemed to lose their cohesion, their attack patterns becoming erratic and uncoordinated. The Concordance fleet is pressing the advantage, reported Riley Scott's voice. Vraxan vessels are beginning to retreat. Sentinel escape pod to Earth defense, Grant transmitted. This is Captain Grant with Dr. Cooper. We're alive and could use a pickup. The response came quickly, relief evident in Quinn's voice. Copy that, Captain. Rescue vessels are already en route. Welcome back, both of you. As a Concordance fighter moved alongside their pod, its pilot giving them a thumbs up through the viewport, Eliza felt the tension of the past months finally begin to release. They had done it. Humanity had faced its first interstellar threat and survived. So, Grant said, turning to her with a weary but triumphant smile, what do you think our ancestors would say about how their experiment turned out? Eliza thought about everything that had led to this moment. The discovery of the Codex, the revelation of humanity's true heritage, and the unprecedented unity that had allowed Earth to stand against a threat that had nearly destroyed a far more advanced civilization. I think, she replied, watching as the last Vraxan ships vanished into hyperspace. They'd say the founders did pretty well for themselves. 3 months after what was now being called the Battle of Earth, Eliza stood on a hilltop overlooking the newly constructed Concordance Embassy in what had once been a remote area of New Zealand. The sleek structure, a harmonious blend of human and Concordance architectural styles, gleamed in the afternoon sun. It's quite beautiful, observed Admiral Taryn, who had come to stand beside her. A fitting symbol of our new relationship. The beginning of a new chapter for both our peoples, Eliza agreed. How are the integration programs proceeding? Better than expected, Taryn replied. Your educational institutions are absorbing our technological knowledge at an impressive rate, while our people are finding human creativity and cultural diversity refreshingly chaotic. Eliza laughed. That's us, chaotically creative. Perhaps that's exactly what the original founders were hoping for, Taryn mused. A branch of our species that would evolve differently, seeing solutions we could not. Speaking of solutions, Eliza said, the combined fleet detected another Vraxan harvesting group in the Proxima Centauri system. Captain Grant is leading the expedition to intercept them. The first human-led mission beyond your solar system, Taryn noted with approval. Your species adapts quickly. We've had practice, Eliza replied, thinking of all the challenges humanity had faced throughout its history. And now we have a whole galaxy to adapt to. As they watched, a sleek vessel rose from the embassy's landing pad, a new generation of ship built with combined human and concordance technology. It accelerated smoothly upward, rapidly becoming a mere point of light against the blue sky. Humanity had discovered its true heritage and survived its greatest test. Now, with the knowledge of the Codex and the alliance with the Concordance, Earth was taking its first steps into a much larger universe, not as a newcomer, but as a returning member of a cosmic family. And for Eliza Cooper, once just an archaeologist trying to understand the past, the future had never looked more promising. And that was the end of the story. If you listened all the way to here, don't forget to leave feedback about what you thought of the story in the comments, whether positive or negative. Your feedback helps us improve. Also, leave your like and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this one. And I'll leave here on the screen another video that I'm sure you'll like. Big hug, and see you in the next story.